This episode of Trifles is made possible by listeners like you, who support us on Patreon and Substack. To learn more, go to patreon.com/trifles or trifles.substack.com. Welcome to Trifles, a weekly podcast about the Sherlock Holmes stories.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Yes, the beaches were copper, the pince-nez was golden, and the blaze was silver, but there are so many other details to pick apart in the stories.
Pray, be precise as to details.
You know the plots, but what about the minutiae? Have you ever stopped to wonder about the difference between Holmes's pipes? Or how often he smokes cigars versus cigarettes? Or what Egyptian cigarettes are like?
You are very inquisitive, Mr. Holmes.
It is my business to know what other people don't know.
Scott Monty and Burt Wolder will have the answers to these questions and more in Trifles.
The game's afoot.
Episode 383, Wordplay. Hello and welcome to Trifles, the Sherlock Holmes podcast where we get into the minutiae in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Burt Wolder.
And Burt, are you feeling playful?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yes, always.
Hey, let's choose up sides and go home.
Okay.
Okay, good.
You're it. I always get chosen last. So sad. Well, we've got a fun listener-suggested topic here today.
Hooray.
We're looking at odd words in the canon. Words that perhaps you've seen before, perhaps you haven't seen before. It may be a little unfamiliar in certain contexts. And, without an Encyclopedia Sherlockiana at hand, you might be scratching your head wondering what some of these things are. Either foreign terms or terms long ago abandoned, and we are here to help shed some light on that. So stick with us for this episode. Just a little bit of administrative detail here. If you'd like to support the show, which we welcome that, you can do that on Substack or Patreon. Just go to, trifles.substack.com or patreon.com/trifles. Those are the two places. You can choose your level of support in either one, but we do say that if you want thank you gifts, we do have some thank you gifts, so stickers, mugs, etc. You can do that on Patreon. But on both of the sites, you do get access to the shows without advertising, and additional bonus content is made available for you. So take advantage of that and know that you're helping us to do our research and to provide all of the hosting costs and everything that goes into the production of a fine podcast like this.
And where do we keep that fine podcast like this?
It's in the wine cellar next to the fine wines.
Okay, excellent.
Ancient and cobwebby bottles.
Yes, because I spend so much time on this podcast, I was wondering where the fine one was.
You need to go through it with a fine-tooth podcast comb.
Oh, I'll buy one immediately.
Okay, well, we have a wonderful note from supporter Jennifer Cassasanto. I believe we met Jennifer at the BSI weekend a few years ago, probably pre-pandemic, and she is in the Providence area, so you get to see her on the regular, Burt.
Yes, she's an invested member of the Cornish Hour, is a great Sherlockian, and has participated in lots of events. And this is a great suggestion.
It really is. She said she messaged us through Patreon, and she congratulated us on achieving, 365 episodes. That was back at the end of last year. But she said it might be interesting for you to do a funny episode on most commonly misunderstood words, both in meaning and pronunciation, and the canon. I remember how I thought pince-nez rhymed with mince pez. Or what is an antimacassar? It seemed to suggest something that prevented violence. Also, did you ever tell us what a yeggman was? What the heck was Sholto wearing? I always imagined befrogged to mean he looked fat and dumpy. I never did look up Astrakhan collar, and I always thought hanging laplets on his cap to look like something like feet hanging down off the rabbit skin. So, there's a lot to choose from there, and of course, we did our research and we came up with even more obscure terms that you might be wondering about. And this is just a little bit of an aside here. We have 16 different introductions to Trifles. If you've ever taken the time to listen to our introduction before the show begins, we run the music and there's a narration there. But 16 different introductions, all mentioning the trifling things that we cover. And I think yeggman does come up in that context.
Yeah, but we don't explain it.
Not in the intro. We did, however, cover yeggman in episode 124, Odd Jobs. But it might be worth revisiting for our listeners who haven't heard episode 124 to understand just what does a yeggman do?
Omelet maker.
Omelet maker.
Yeah, it's the fellow at the buffet, you know, on a Saturday or a Sunday who's got the pan of eggs and oil and sometimes wears a chef's toque and inquires whether or not you want pepper or onion or ham in with your omelet and swirls it together.
I'm walking on eggshells over here, Bert. I
wonder what that crackling was.
No, I thought the yeggman was the guy who was not the walrus. For you Beatles fans out there.
Yes. Oh, very good.
Yegg. That is a yegg is a safe, and a yeggman is a burglar who is a safe cracker. It was I guess originally a gypsy word that meant bomber, and it first appeared in print in the New York Evening Post in June 1903, and it became part of the British vernacular just prior to that, around 1900. Fascinating. Yeah.
Interesting. You know, these things are artifacts, of course, of another age, and it's wonderful to encounter that slang. And today, you know, you will come across, every so often I'll turn up a book, you know, written about 1905 or 1909, and there'll be a passage of dialogue in there that'll be completely incomprehensible to me because it, you know, reflects popular culture of that instant in time, and some of those words haven't survived.
It wasn't because you were blotto again from being down in the fine wine cellar?
No, not at all.
No, I mean, this is part of the wonderful evolution of the English language. And I know, you know, there's a connection here with the canon just in terms of thinking about the language. Holmes, of course, called Watson his Boswell. James Boswell was the famous biographer of Samuel Johnson. And Johnson was a major mover and shaker behind the original Oxford English Dictionary, a man who really loved thinking and working with words. And the English language, like all languages, is something that is constantly in flux. It is updated with signs of the times. You know, I mean, there are new words added to the dictionary every year. And there are also words that are retired from the dictionary, not necessarily with great fanfare, but they just kind of fade out of existence. And a number of these words can be found in the Sherlock Holmes stories. So where shall we start beyond yeggman?
Well, we could pretty much start anywhere. You know, the one place that it would be reasonable to start would be some of the foreign language words. So, for example, recherche. You know, at the start of a Musgrave ritual, we have Holmes dragging out his record box and finding these souvenirs of this early case. And he says, now, this really is something, a little recherche.
And what was this? Why would he call it recherche?
Well, because it was, it was special. It was carefully sought out. Recherche is a French word. It's also occasionally used as an adjective. It could mean elegant or refined, but it's something very rare, very exotic, very choice. And of course, what he's looking at are these ancient artifacts, these things that even today to Watson don't look very special. He describes it as, he says he dived his arm down to the bottom of the chest and brought up a small wooden box with a sliding lid, such as children's toys are kept in. And from within he produced a crumpled piece of paper, an old-fashioned brass key, a peg of wood with a ball of string attached to it, and then 3 rusty old discs of metal. And, of course, that's just a lovely beginning. So how could these commonplace objects, mean anything? And, of course, we're about to find out.
Well, I like that. It really sets the stage for what's ahead in this story, the only story in the canon where the butler did it. that cliche comes to life.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Alert.
Yeah, I should have known. But, it certainly was something a little recherche when we get to the bottom of it. Brunton was well ahead of his master in figuring out exactly what that long-held family secret was.
Well, and there's another foreign language word I suppose we can get out of the way. There may be more, but akushla, for example, akushla, which turns up in Valley of Fear. It comes from the Gaelic, and it can mean darling. It's I think the akushla. I mean, it's not quite the Irish Gaelic, but basically, I think the meaning is "oh, darling."
Yeah, it's a beat of my heart, technically.
Yeah, it's a word of endearment.
Yeah,
it's an endearing mention.
Pulse, the pulse of the moment. Oh, I like that, a kushla. And where did we find a kushla?
In Valley of Fear.
Valley of Fear. That makes sense. Yeah. And okay, well that's a good one. Similarly, other foreign words. Well, of course, one of the most famous, I think, is disjecta membra, which is one of my favorites. And I think of Henry Baker there observing the. Well, actually, he hadn't observed. He mentioned the goose, and Holmes had mentioned that they took it apart, and Baker said, "I have no use for the disjecta membra," meaning the parts of the goose that had been thrown away, the ejected parts, if you will, and that's of course Latin, and that speaks to Henry Baker's own intelligence and being an intellect, spending his time at the British Museum, a wonderful use in the popular conversation.
And then there's some wonderful other words. Hound of the Baskervilles is a great one for a couple of very interesting words. For example, goyle. Actually, goyle, G-O-Y-L-E, I think. It may be G-O-Y-A-L in hound. But it's basically, I think this is a word that's used in the discussion about the terrain of the moor. And a goyle is a noun. It means a steep, narrow valley, a ravine, a gully, things like that. So it's a description of the terrain there in the hound.
Goyle, I like that. And similarly, there's, well, it looks like Gale, but it's pronounced jail. G-A-O-L. It's just an Old English version, Old English spelling of jail. So don't get your knickers in a twist about that one. It's simply jail.
Yeah. Well, poor old Oscar Wilde, that when I first read Ballad of the Reading Jail. That mystified me. Well, it didn't mystify me. I with some authority, just thought of it as Ballad of the Reading Gowl. because I didn't know that it was a spelling of the word jail. So, and it took me a while before the penny dropped and I realized it was the same word as jail.
Yeah, there you go. Well, let's see. What else do we have on this list? It's a pretty extensive list.
Yeah, well, back to the Hound. We have pannikin. It's a small pan or a cup, usually made of tin. It's a drinking cup.
Oh, I thought that's what Sir Henry did when the Hound was chasing him.
No, that was Sir Charles. Sir Charles was panicking.
No, this is Pannikin.
Yes,
Pannikin.
indeed.
Okay, that's a good one. Yep. Well, early on in the canon, in A Scandal in Bohemia, we hear of the use of a smoke rocket. This is interesting. It's not something that you would take out at the 4th of July, primarily because they don't celebrate U.S. Independence Day over in Great Britain. But this is a plumber's tool, a smoke rocket, something that is sent down pipes, and the smoke that emanates from it would help to identify any kind of cracks or fissures in the pipe in need of repair. And Holmes, of course, used this as the ruse, the distraction to get Irene Adler to disclose the location of the photograph. I think he had Watson throw the smoke rocket or plumber's rocket in through the window.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Watson was always walking around with a rocket in his pocket.
Smithers, there's a rocket in my pocket.
You don't have to tell me, sir.
And let's see, what else is there? There is, Beeswing is a good one. Beeswing, which was the investiture of our much missed friend
Susan Rice.
Yeah, Susan. Beeswing, pops up in the Sherlock Holmes stories. It's a thin film that can be found, after port or wine has been kept for a long while. It's a film that can be found on the glass surface. It's sort of like a shining film of scales. And I think it's of tartar, if I remember correctly. But it's an artifact, and the point is, of course, it can be disturbed or not. And it takes its name from the fact that it resembles, what you might consider to be the diaphanous, interlaced look of a bee's wing.
Well, there you go. Huh. Look at you, back in the fine wine cellar again.
Yes, a little claret.
Sticking with the drinking theme here, we have Gasogene and Tantalus, which Holmes referenced being on the sideboard. Gasogene is simply a two-bulb version of a seltzer bottle. It was also called a seltzogene, but you would basically have these two globes, and they were connected by through a shaft, kind of a straw, and there would be carbon. I don't know exactly what the element is that would be in one of them. It would produce carbon dioxide gas when mixed with water, and this is something for mixing drinks. And then, of course, the Tantalus is you've probably seen these. It's basically like a decanter case. It's a wooden case, typically, sometimes metal, but it has an attachment on top that latches over the bottles, thus making you unable to remove the bottles to decant the whiskey, which is typically kept in them. And it was kept on full display. And it was named after the Greek demigod Tantalus, who was tortured for eternity. I'm trying to think what his crime was. He was chained in a lake, and there were branches of a tree, a fruit-bearing tree, just over his head. Every time he went to reach up for the fruit, the branches would rise out of his grasp. Every time he went down to take a drink of water from the lake, the water would recede out of his reach as well. So when you think of things that are tantalizing, things that are within your sight, but you're unable to make them happen, that's what the Tantalus takes its name from.
He used his salad fork for his entree.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was one of those little moments in history when people were really very, very particular about these kind of rituals.
No, he was the king of Lydia, the son of Zeus. He was favored by the gods, but he made the mistake of sacrificing his son Pelops to the Olympians. That's right. He fed them his son in their ambrosia, I think.
So he invented rice pilaf? Is that what you just said?
That's it. No, rice-a-roni.
Oh,
San Francisco
dear,
treat.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, then, moving on, there's kith and kin. And this is a reference that we find early in the canon because it's Watson who tells us that he has no kith or kin. And, of course, kin is where you keep your kith, and he didn't have any of either of those things. But actually, it's an old-fashioned idiom that means friends and relatives. And it's a wonderful old phrase from the 14th century. It originally meant countrymen and family members. And so it's like Middle English, 1350 or so. One's native land, kith or kin. Yeah, it's just a terrific old phrase.
Yeah, and also from that very same section of the story, when Watson runs into Stanford at the High Holborn, the Holborn Bar, they started off together in a hansom and
Criterion Bar
at the Criterion, and then he asked him to lunch at the Holborn. On the way over there, Stanford said, "What have you been doing with yourself, Watson? You're as thin as a lath and brown as a nut." and we don't have laths all that frequently around here. And, he who laughs last laughs best.
Laughs best.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, occasionally they turn up, if you're in an old house, and you're doing repairs on the wall, you will pretty much, unfortunately, find perhaps lath lurking there.
Yeah, typically it would be lath and horsehair. And a lath is a thin strip of wood, and it usually is hung horizontally and one on top of the other. So it almost looks like shutters when they're closed. But it is combined with plaster and horsehair for insulation, for wall covering. Well, we did. Jennifer did mention this in her introduction. Antimacassar.
Antimacassar.
Antimacassar. Is it? Yeah. See, I don't even know how to. It's my pince nez. What can I say?
Look, the problem here, the issue, if you've got one of these things, of course, is to watch out to see whether or not you have a macassar. Because you can't put both of them together in the same spot.
Well, it's funny you should say that because the antimacassar was invented because of macassar. Macassar was a hair oil that was popular in the 19th century. And you've probably seen an antimacassar without knowing it. It's those doilies that go over the backs of the chairs. Or maybe you've seen them in, old pictures of first-class airplane seats. And it was a protective covering that was thrown over the back of the chair to protect from the effects of that hair oil.
Yes, and obviously Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was very aware of them.
Oh my God. We should have warned people when we got into this on Wordplay that there would be puns involved.
No.
I once entered 10 puns in a contest hoping that one would win, but no pun intended.
Oh,
Sorry.
Well, then you can look at the Gloria Scott, and in Gloria Scott there's another old word that pops up, fens. And a fen is a type of a wetland. You know, there's a great mystery written by Dorothy L. Sayers, Ms. Dorothy L. Sayers, that's all about, the issues of living in the fen country. And, of course, she was the daughter of a vicar, and I think she grew up in the fen country, as I remember correctly. And The Nine Tailors is a story about basically a vicarage in the fen country where there's a jewel theft, and then many years later, strange things happen, and Lord Peter Wimsey happens to be there. But the animating atmosphere in the whole book, which is beautifully done, is all about the issues and the waters and the threats that come from living in the fen country.
Oh, that's fascinating. I haven't read that. I've been on the fence about it.
It's terrific. Really is terrific. You'll learn about bell ringing if you read
Perfect.
Nine Tailors.
Well, I have a feeling we could keep going on and on with this because there are so many terms. I actually have a book. Gosh.
You have a book?
Yes, a book by an old Canadian irregular on various terms like this. Let me see if I can find it. Because it's a good reference.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm just going to talk about the cardboard box for a second. And this is a reference, that you might not know, again, if you don't have an annotated Sherlock Holmes anywhere. Darbies. The darbies get put on somebody, and the darbies was a slang term for handcuffs. And what the root of that word is, the etymology of it, I don't know. Actually, I didn't look at it. Look it up.
Yeah, the book is an irregular Anglo-American glossary of more or less unfamiliar words, terms, and phrases in the Sherlock Holmes saga, edited by S. Tupper Bigelow.
Oh, how good.
Published in 1959 by Castellat and Zamba in Toronto. So there you go. So this will be the source of many future wordplay episodes, I would imagine.
Oh, good.
But I want to close out with this one because it's one that, again, it's like brain fever, and we've talked about brain fever before. This is an affliction that it's still recognized today, but it's not called the same thing today, and that is quinsy. Quinsy. And do you remember who in the canon is afflicted with quinsy, Bert?
Yes, it was Jack Klugman. He played.
It was either that or John Adams. I was an even bet which way you'd go with that.
He played the medical exam. Remember he played the medical exam?
Quincy M.E., sure.
He left Tony Randall, and he got this job as a medical examiner.
That's Q-U-I-N-C-Y. We're looking for Q-U-I-N-S-Y. That was something that our friend Hosmer Angel said he was suffering from. His voice was gentle, Mary Sutherland tells us. She said he had the quinsy and swollen glands when he was young, he told me, and it left him with a weak throat and a hesitating, whispering fashion of speech. Very clever. And if you were to look up quinsy today, it is technically called peritonsillar abscess. It's a rare but potentially serious complication of tonsillitis or pharyngitis. It's usually when a bacterial infection spreads from the tonsil to the surrounding area and causes a whole mess back there. So there you go. Words, and always playful.
Very good.
And never a trifle.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Please join us again next week for another installment of Trifles. Show notes are available on SherlockHolmesPodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and be sure to check out our longer show, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, where we interview notable Sherlockians and share news of the Sherlockian world.
You've taken my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
Now that was something a little recherche.